Welcome to the Heartlands Ward, the heart of the American lands, safety, order, and comfort, the promises of the Heartlands in these hard and desperate times. A light in the darkness of the world that surrounds it. It is the pinnacle of order and security. It is also a lie. Our scene opens as we are moving down into the Heartlands Ward from an overhead view. We see smooth paved streets, we see fences, we see gates to protect the homes from intruders, or worse, from anything that might venture out of the forest nearby. The forests that people swear weren't quite that close to the fences yesterday. The streets are dark, and we snake through them. We see the occasional oil lantern hanging on the porches of various buildings and homes, and our camera finally stops a little too abruptly, just outside of a building with warm lantern light spilling from the windows. Voices are heard through the walls, and as the camera pushes into the building, we see we're in a tavern, a bar. There is a fireplace lit on one side of the room, with seating areas scattered all around, a bar directly across from the front door, and there are about a dozen people in here right now. A lot of heads seem to be turned to the gentleman that sits in a chair, backwards, leaning his forearms on the back of the chair and talking with excited eyes to the entire room, to anyone that will listen. This gentleman wears a tailored suit, coattails hanging down past the chair. His brimmed hat has been removed and set on the table, and his slicked back hair is a contrast to his pale skin, dark and greasy with product. His silvered gray eyes are alight with excitement as he tells a tale that many have probably heard before. A tale that most locals here in the Heartlands scoff at as legend, superstition. A folktale. And when the delivery came in the next day, the mail carrier rode into town to find everyone in pools of their own blood. Everyone. Every single person in that little logging village were dead. Except, and he holds up a finger, looking around, making eye contact with the people that are listening, except for the dogs. The dogs were left alive, and to this day, nobody knows what could have done it. As he finishes this story, the camera pans over to our first character. Sarah, where do we find your character, and what does she look like? What do we see?
A woman in her late 30s. There are crinkles around her eyes and around her lips. She's a woman with a very soft face, but an intelligent expression. She smiles easily, and she moves behind the bar wearing a really resplendent silk robe, something from the old world, something that's been preserved, something that makes her feel beautiful, and something that gets her quite a bit of attention. She's tending to her guests, pouring new drinks, exchanging money here and there, and every once in a while as she moves, her fingers trail across the shotgun strapped to the bottom of the bar.
And is she listening to this story, or is she kind of having her attention on other things?
Verity's mind is always in 20 different places when she is tending to this place, because this is her tavern. This is her home. This is her establishment. Everything in it belongs to her. She's listening to conversations at the bar. She's watching people as they move up and down the staircases that lead to lodging rooms and to other places of work. And she's listening to the man with the bright voice and the interesting story.
You all hear, "Tell another," as an older gentleman, known as Old Man Bullock, sits a few cups into the night and hiccups after he makes his request. The gentleman pushes a couple rogue strands of hair back and he takes a breath. Ah, I think I have another in me before I turn in for the evening. And as he begins to gather his thoughts for the next story, our camera pans over to our second character, Alex. Who do we see? Where is he seated? And what is he doing?
So the camera sees in one of the more brightly lit corners, a man in his early 40s, well dressed, tailored clothes. Everything seems just so about him. His long overcoat that he usually wears is thrown over the back of the chair. It's all gold and buttons, and he's got a vest on, and he's got sort of a nicer shirt. Wavy, dark brown hair, close cropped beard. But the weird thing about him is that even in this very bright space, he's wearing sunglasses. Very dark shades that cover his eyes. He's got a pipe that he's smoking, and there are a couple of other people at the table, and they are playing a game of cards, and he seems to be doing quite well for himself. There are stacks of gold coins, large sort of piles of paper money for those who think that that's valuable. He doesn't really care. He'll take any of it. And he's just sort of happily chattering away at the people whose money he's very quickly taking.
Amazing. We kind of pull away from this chatter just a little bit and hear the gentleman say, "All right, have you heard the story of the good wife from Vermont? Sarah Huygens, I think her name is. Have you heard that one?" And the old man's like shaking his head, really excited, leans forward to listen. And as the gentleman is beginning his tale, the camera pans to our third character, Vince. Who do we see? And where is he seated?
Zedekiah Makepeace, who everyone refers to as Zed for the sake of brevity, is propping up his usual corner in Verity's Tavern in Gideon's. Just seated with his back to the wall, a clear view of the room in front of him, keeping an eye out for ne'er-do-wells and ruffians and troublemakers who would dare to attempt to ruin Verity's and the patrons' evening. He's wearing kind of very worn hunter's clothing, as well as a capitaine, the old Puritan pilgrim style hat on the table in front of him, along with his arsenal, a rifle, a shotgun, and his hunting knife. As far as physical appearance goes, he's weathered. He's probably in his early 30s. He's got a very big, bushy black beard that's starting to get flecks of gray. Long black hair slicked back down to the nape of his neck, and these green eyes that just never seem to stop moving and watching, aware of every coming and going in the establishment.
Camera kind of stays on Zed for a moment, and you hear the gentleman beginning his story. Well, her story is sure to send a few shivers down your spine. You see, the forest near her home kept creeping closer. Vines twisting and hungry, creeping toward her home so slowly, so strategically, that she hardly even noticed. And once she began to notice, it was already too late. The forest had chosen her, you see. And as he is diving into this tale, our camera pans to our fourth and final character, Liz. Who do we see, and where is she sitting?
You see Faith Parker in the probably opposite Zed, so she's falling within your sort of sweeping gaze, but in a shadow, and kind of out of the way, and a very anti-social presence. Faith is dark-skinned with these beautiful tight curls that she keeps into a very like elaborate updo into the back of her head. Like she's got ribbon sort of done through it. She is visibly fancy in a way that most people here probably aren't, with the exception of Verity. Partially why she tucks herself away. She has a very lovely deep purple and maroon velvet gown that she's wearing that she just sort of is hunched like a goblin over a stack of books and like crinkling the fabric in awful ways. Just open books everywhere, sort of on the table that she's commandeered at every angle, to the point where you can't fathom that she's looking at all of these things at once. And then another stack on the floor, and then another stack at the back corner of the table. Like it's bad. It's really bad. But she's moving in almost an unsettling way between the information in front of her. Like she'll read a few pages of something, and then she'll like pick something else up and balance a different book. Like it's very methodical. Faith, something that I think also puts Faith in that corner, she has a very stark streak of white hair through her sort of updo that winds around, and perhaps the ribbon is meant to distract from that. She looks like she's maybe in her mid-20s, so she's on the younger side, but it definitely stands out as unnatural. And ever so, we have like firelight in here, right? Like lanterns and such. Anytime the lighting sort of shifts as the story is being told, Faith's eyes reflect like an animal's.
Hell yeah. We also see, I think, on the chair, either beside you or like across from you, we see a book that Oliver Colstock had left. It's wide open, and he has been practicing the alphabet in that book as you have been teaching him. And he left the book here. It's open. It has his name up at the top that he has written out himself. In here also, as the camera it goes into a circle after seeing Faith, kind of just showing you other people that are in here. You see a young man that's in here pretty regularly, sitting also just with one singular book that he seems to be reading. You know him as Noah Atwood. He sits here and he has his like head in his hands looking down at his book, but you see his eyes are kind of like almost glossed over, like he is in fact listening to the story but pretending not to. You also see Ephraim Belcher, the fisherman that is usually very, 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 what is the best word? Vigorously drinking, I think, is the best way to describe Ephraim. He is currently, you were surprised how attentive he was to the first story that Elijah was telling, but is passed out on the table now, drink kind of hugged, half gone. And there are a few other familiar faces in here. And a lot of them haven't ordered another drink in a while. They've just been sitting and listening to these stories because there's a lot of stories being told. And after the camera circles and pans back over, one night, while dark and cloudy with no moon to shed even the smallest amount of light to the trees, it came for her. She heard a sound outside, a sound that she could have sworn was the voice of her late husband. He was calling for her. "Please, help me. Come here, I need you." But when she opened the front door to check, it took her. Reached up from under the porch and pulled her down, pulled her through the grass, pulled her into the forest. She thought the dragging would never end. She felt the brambles and twigs and rocks scraping her skin, but it would not let go. And there was no light. No light to see what was dragging her, but it was strong. She couldn't fight it off. Finally, after ages, the dragging stopped. The floor was dirt, and the smell was earthen. After a few moments of feeling around, she felt cloth. A pack. Through blind desperation, she searched. She searched the pack blindly and found, eventually, flint. Desperate for light, desperate to see where she had been taken, she began to strike it. Strike. 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 She was still seeing darkness all around her. Strike. 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 Dark walls of dirt and rock and roots. Strike. 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 A cave. She was in a cave. If she could just find her way out. Strike. Movement. A creature, a monstrosity. She only saw it for a second, and she didn't dare strike the flint again. A creature so vile, she swore her heart stopped right then and there. She didn't breathe, she didn't move. Frozen in a fear unlike any fear she had ever felt in her entire life. She could hear it moving. She could hear teeth gnashing, flesh ripping. She just hoped it wouldn't come any closer. Praying to the forefathers that it would consume its fill on whatever poor soul it was already chewing on. The forefathers answered her prayers, or maybe she just got lucky. But the creature got its fill and slept. And when morning came, she could see the light coming through the cave entrance. Yet she still averted her gaze from the horrible, terrible, terrifying monstrosity that slept in a pool of blood and flesh beside her. She crept, almost silently, and once she reached that cave entrance, she ran. Barefoot and nearly breathless through the forest, her nightgown shredding up to the knees as she ran for her life. Bursting from the forest, she couldn't stop screaming. She didn't even know it was her at first. She didn't stop screaming until someone found her and took her far away from those trees. Finally, she was able to give the authorities a description of the creature, but she found it quite difficult to do so. She had only seen it for a second, after all, and she had averted her gaze in the light. Yet she warns all who will listen not to go into the forest, and pray to the forefathers that it never comes for you. Pray that you never see the creature with no mouth, yet so many teeth. And there's silence for a moment as the story comes to an end, and then just the sound of the drink being slammed down onto the table, making a few people jump, a few people that were maybe too interested in the story. Tell us another, the old man demands. And then the storyteller chuckles and finishes his own drink. I'll tell you what, next time I'll tell you the one of the huntsman in Litchfield. You'll never look at a deer in quite the same way. And he stands up and he begins putting on his overcoat. Or perhaps the one about the headless spirit that comes and takes the children away in the night. And you see the old man's smile disappear. It's quiet again, and the storyteller kind of glances around. I'm sorry, did I say something wrong? Old Man Bullock stands up so abruptly that the table scoots. His drink tips and clatters and splatters to the floor, and he is staring with anger at this storyteller. What do we see from all of you at this point?
At the sound of the table scooting, it's a very aggressive sound. in the relative silence of the tavern now, and the following that story, Zed immediately looks up and his eyes fall on Old Man Bullock. He doesn't stand just yet, but people could see, especially those who may be used to seeing him in this establishment, see those muscles tense just a bit, as if he's ready to pounce.
I think Faith has been listening with sort of a generous eye roll. A lot of these stories are familiar to her, as she's beaten the storyteller to the punch in reading some edition. Most of the ones he tells, I don't think, are the direct editions that she's read, but she knows the beats. And I think she's been very generous in not groaning out loud. But I think I'm gonna make this fun. I think towards the end, she started watching Noah, who's been pretending to be occupied in a book, and like kind of fascinated that he's listening. And then the noise of the table moving and everything scares her, and she makes unfortunate eye contact with the storyteller, and then immediately averts her gaze and tries to recede back in the shadow. She's not supposed to do that.
You would have noticed as well that Noah definitely jumped when the tankard was slammed down on the table. Like, that was what got Noah, because he was really intensely listening, and then he was like, whoa, and kind of looked up, and his eyes are just glued on this scene as well.
Verity, kind of from behind the bar, she leans back towards the kitchen, her voice low, and she speaks to the cook, who's kind of been working away, doing a mix of preparing orders for now and prepping things for the next morning. Go get Goldie. Tell her to bring her violin. And after giving that order with kindness but authority, she begins kind of making her way slowly towards the center of the room where the tension is emanating from.
As you are kind of walking out from behind the bar, you see Thomas, who has been like collecting drinks from one of the tables. He's holding like 6 drinks in his hands, and he's just kind of looking at the scene, and then at you, and then the scene, and then at you, not moving, not really sure where to go.
That was quite the story, now wasn't it? I do think it's a bit too late for this. And perhaps the story has given us an opportunity. Like the woman in the cave, sometimes we do not know the light until we have experienced the darkest of shadows. Ah, Goldie, great timing. Why don't you cheer us up with a song?
And what did we see from Cecil while this was happening?
So Cecil has absolutely not been focusing on the story. He's very focused on his cards. I think the other patrons are sort of half listening. And when the tankard slams and this noise happens, he absolutely takes the opportunity to do 2 things. First, to grab some coin that is not being paid attention to on the table and adds it to his little stash. And then he also, even if someone were watching, it would be hard for them to see, but he absolutely pulls a card out of his sleeve and replaces it in his hand. And once Verity has come out and brought Goldie, and Goldie's going to play a song, he says, all right, well, that was very exciting, but we do have a hand to play here, so... Bets, gentle people?
What instrument does Goldie play?
She has a violin.
Okay. She is beginning to bring that up, and Old Man Bullock seems to be ignoring every other person in the room, eyes just staring into the storytellers. You think that's funny, boy? I'm sorry. I meant no offense. No offense. And you actually see, a shock to most of you, Old Man Bullock step around the table and shove the storyteller. He kind of moves backwards a little bit, but it is very sturdy in his catching of himself. That ain't no legend, boy. The old man points to himself, as if that proves something. I think Faith and Zedekiah would be closest. So, Verity, it's your decision if you want to see this or not. But Zedekiah and Faith, you are seeing he's not pointing to himself. He is pointing to a little white ribbon that is tied around his neck. Just pointing to it. And he has tears in his eyes at this point, anger still just filling his face. Sir, I think you've had one too many. I'm more than happy to help you home. You think I'm lying? I'll show you. And the old man Bullock, reaches up to the tie in the ribbon and pulls it. And all of you watch as the ribbon unravels and begins falling. The entire bar watches in shock and horror as Old Man Bullock's head falls from his shoulders, slams with a nasty and soft thud onto the table. The body stands for a couple of seconds as the ribbon begins drifting down to the floor, and the body and the ribbon crumple to the floor at the same time. What do you do?
This is so metal. I love this.
Zed's doing what I'm doing. I'm just kind of staring. Like, what the fuck just happened?
You definitely see the storyteller backs up so quickly that he trips over the chair that's behind him, barely catches himself on the windowsill, just staring at where the body was, just in shock, and then looking down at the head that is laying there on the table. You see, it's a mix. Like, some people immediately panic and have to get out of here. You hear chairs scooting and they are rushing out. Others are literally just sitting and staring, just like Zedekiah.
Is there blood?
There's no blood.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah, I think at this point Zed will stand up and say, "Everyone back. Go home."
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, is the head like did he do this and we understand in a way Old Man Bullock is dead, or is his head still just kind of chilling out and is this like a Addams Family situation?
I think with that question, Faith kind of leans forward a little bit and squints at the head itself. The skin is already turning gray and the eyes are rolled back in their sockets.
Following the general sort of rush of the crowd, I would love to go over to the body and start poking around at it a little bit, and if I can swipe the ribbon, I'd love to take it.
Okay, so
lean into being a little freak.
Faith is moving towards the body. Zedekiah is trying to get everybody to leave. What are Verity and Cecil doing?
So Cecil has the brave trait, so he absolutely shuffles the cards, puts them down, scoops his winnings, is like, did that man just decapitate himself? And he walks over and is like, what are you is this Verity, does this sort of thing happen normally here? I've never heard of this before.
Cecil, now is not the time.
Verity, as a note, you also heard Thomas, your young helper that's always clumsy, drops all of the cups that he was holding. He was holding 6 cups, and when this happened, just dropped all of them. You hear all of them just clatter at his feet, and he's just staring at this scene.
She stammers for a moment and then kind of eyes fixed on the body and then the head and then back to the body. And then she looks to Zed. You take care downstairs. I need to take him up.
And he's just like, and you're just kind of grab and just drag, and he's just, no words can actually come out. You take him away. Zedekiah, everyone is listening to you except for Cecil and Faith. Everyone has left, but Cecil and Faith are kind of coming up. Faith definitely scoops the ribbon before they can be stopped, but you can stop them from actually touching the body if you want. That is your discretion.
I think he'll look at Faith for a moment and say, "Are you good with medicine?"
I know a few things. Yes. I just want to understand. I'm sure Verity doesn't want this happening again. We can prevent it.
So do I. What did
All
this
right.
to him? Look at the wound.
Can I am skilled in physical medicine. Can I attempt to do an autopsy of sorts? At least a preliminary examination, CSI style. Like, I will pull out full on gloves that look a little too fancy to be doing this kind of work, but are definitely stained with the indication that Faith has done this before. Like, Faith is in here.
Let me ask, are you just doing this where he fell, or are you kind of putting the body up on a table for better light and better examination?
If Zed wouldn't mind helping me with that, because my arms are noodles, I think we'll do the table approach.
Yeah. I want to take a quick look around, like immediately around the body, like because again, I think Zed's having a hard time adjusting to the fact that there is no blood. Like he's looking for even a sign of a droplet or anything, and barring that, he'll help lift the body and place it on a table.
All right, I think we hear two tables kind of like scooting together. The body is picked up. The head is kind of placed where the head should be. You can go ahead and make that roll to see if you can see what you can uncover about this body.
Ooh, okay. I'm gonna use, it was a white ribbon, so I'm gonna use my white D20. This is where I pull out a million of them. Okay, hold on.
First
Let
roll
me
of the
actually look at my sheet so I have my stuff to add. Here we go. Natural 20. I roll a D20, right?
Holy shit.
Amazing. I will also note you did not see the storyteller leave, but the storyteller is no longer in the bar.
Okay.
And as you are looking at this body, there is in fact no blood, and the skin is getting grayer and grayer and thinner. The longer he sits here, the longer it looks like he's been dead in terms of years. He's almost mummifying in a sense. He's not like decomposing down to the bone or anything like that, but you can just see the decomposition is just very unnatural and fast.
Before he's gone entirely, just to try it, if I put the ribbon back on, does anything happen?
No.
Okay. I'm keeping it. I just think it would be a nice ribbon.
Oh, didn't work. Well, pocket that.
Yeah.
If we put the head back on and tie it back on, nothing happens.
Nope.
Oh shit.
Well, if he's not responding, I'm gonna start like Y cavity with like some, like, it's just gonna be bad, like full on butcher shop type, like butter knives and stuff. Like, Faith is not a good scientist.
Oh yeah, as soon as Faith starts cutting, Zed is like, no, not here. Verity will kill me.
What am I going to kill you for?
Oh,
Nothing.
we started a
Butter knife.
preliminary examination of the body.
Oh gosh, is that... She kind of walks over, feet a little halting. Is that the same thing as before? That's Bullock?
Yeah, looks like it.
How?
Well, I think I might have a beat on that. And Cecil has reached into his pocket and pulled out this, like, battered old cloth book that has, like, very faded gilt on the cover that says Haunted New England. He's like, listen, I'm not much of a reader, but the stories are pretty interesting, and it was a gift from a friend. Well, I won it off of him in a card game, but, Doctor, maybe this could be of some help?
I immediately, as soon as it even inclines slightly in my direction, I'm snatching it up and starting to read.
So that is a religion book that if we could do research on if there are any folklores or legends about this sort of thing, maybe it's in there. I don't know.
This will probably be helpful. Thank you.
So
Yeah.
Faith puts down the knives,
Yeah.
stopped by Zedekiah, grabs the book, and is like flipping through that.
Yeah.
I do want to look at the neck wound. Is it like ragged? Does it look like it's been ripped and torn? Does it look like clean and surgical? Like, what's the nature of the cut?
It's not hard to tell that it was a very, very, very clean cut. One slice, it seemed.
Got it.
Can I perceive Cecil's vibes? I'm getting such a I feel like we might be the same. Just want to do some uncouth staring.
Oh, I think that when Cecil handed you the book, he tapped his sunglasses down, and his eyes are also just completely golden, like an unnatural shininess. And he does it so that only you can see, and then he settles them back onto the bridge of his nose.
Cool. Okay. Just kind of fall into step with you as I read.
Well, before you exit the establishment, the authorities arrive. And
Oh no.
we see them kind of coming in. As they're coming in, not really listening to what any of you have to say in terms of whatever you want to do with the body. They don't care. They're coming in. They're the authorities. They're going to take care of it. So as they're walking in, we see anyone who's speaking, your mouths are moving, but the camera doesn't really hear what you're saying, and it just pulls out of the window and kind of pans out into the dark night, and then through a fence and into the twisted, hungry forest that surrounds. And then the screen goes dark. And our scene opens the next morning. And where do we find Zedekiah?
When he's in or near Providence, Zedekiah typically stays at Gideon's. I don't know. I imagine there's some kind of probably a basement where he can set up a cot and a pillow and some sheets. He's even got that with him in his traveling gear. So just he usually finds a nice quiet corner in the tavern where he's out of the way and spends the night. But he's probably getting up at this point, getting ready, and heading back upstairs.
As you are getting ready to leave your room, you hear a knock. Just a firm but not heavy. Just a knock.
Yeah, he'll answer the door.
You see 3 men standing at the door with kind of top hats on. And as they go to greet you, we cut over to another character. Where are we finding Verity this morning?
She was up pretty early to write a note to his parents so that he could walk back to town with that. And I think now as she continues her morning, she's always up really early. She's heading to her office where she is expecting to find Zed using the proper couch that's in there. And she's kind of frowning when she realizes that he used a bedroll again.
So as you are heading there, you approach the room to see 3 men standing at the door that Zedekiah had just answered. They kind of turn toward you as well. And you see they're wearing dark tan suits, basically. They have the top hats on, and as you are approaching, they remove their top hats and kind of give you a little nod. Morning, ma'am. You would both recognize these people as part of the town's government, officers, more or less. And before we continue this conversation, we cut to Cecil. Where is Cecil this morning?
So Cecil is also a very early riser. So he also stays at the Gideon because he has a lot of money. So it's a comfy place. So he woke up early, went downstairs to rummage some food, wanting Stella, wanting Peter, sort of thing. He's on first name basis with everybody. And I think once he gets food in him, he was then going to go seek out Faith because he has some questions about the book and he wants to know if they found anything. So he probably arrives on Faith's doorstep like half of a bagel or something hanging out of his mouth and 2 cups of coffee.
Faith, I think, with everything going on, having received this book, Faith is not a very conscientious person sometimes, and I think she just walks off the property with it. Faith is of money, and she has a very large library that people don't bother her when she's in there. And so I think overnight she went there, didn't really sleep very much, trying to sort of connect some of the things that they had witnessed and sort of create a pool of information that she could bring back to everybody. Saw where the sun was in the sky, went, oh no. And like full on I'm late for school type, like running through the streets. And would, when you go to her door to see her, she bursts probably through the front door and then up to meet you from behind.
You hear, excuse me, and the 2 of you are being approached by 3 gentlemen in tan suits and top hats.
Doc, it's the fuzz, be careful.
Faith, like a cat that's displeased, just gives the most like judgmental, why are you in here kind of face.
Yeah, I think like the 2 of you have stepped into the home itself and like are going to close the door, and that's when the excuse me came, and they're kind of walking up. And just for clarification, the conversation we're about to have, the same things were said to Verity and Zedekiah in the Gideon as well. We see they come up and one of them says, we'd like to ask you a couple of questions about the events that took place in Gideon's last night. We understand you were there?
You have a proper warrant for that investigation? I know my rights.
Do you?
Sorry, I love this standoff so much. I know decent speech.
Okay.
That is a language that I have. Nice. I just a very obvious like eye roll and clearing of the throat will switch into decent speech. Gentlemen, before this conversation proceeds any further, I'd love to know the subject matter of why you're approaching my doorstep at this hour of the morning. I do have business to attend to.
We only wish for a verification. And one of them kind of reaches in, just a little, almost like a photograph, but it almost looks like it was mostly sketched really quickly. Clearly, though, of the storyteller. And we just ask that you verify, was this man at the scene?
I don't recall.
I've never seen that man before in my life.
I mostly attend to matters outside of tavern's general purview, so I can't say I was paying too close attention.
No, I was very into my cards. Didn't see anybody else.
My associate and I were occupied.
After these 2 answers, we see like a swipe screen going back to Zedekiah and Verity's responses to, was this man at the scene last night?
You know, it's going to be much easier to answer your questions once we've all had a pot of coffee. Why don't you come join me in the kitchen? And Verity just starts walking away from the men, leading them towards the kitchen, where she begins
they don't
rattling.
Follow. They do not follow. They stand and block the door from Zedekiah, waiting for an answer.
it's going to be real hard for you to answer, ask more questions, hear my answers if you stay right there. I promise it's way more comfortable sitting in a chair.
We're perfectly comfortable. We've got many things to do today. We just need a verification. And they're staring at Zedekiah.
Zed looks to Verity for almost like permission to speak.
She rolls her eyes at the three gentlemen and just shrugs, clearly annoyed. And it's clear that this is an expression she would not make if the three men could see her. This is only for Zed.
Yeah, Zed will look at the sketch, look back up at them. He was here.
Wonderful. And they kind of fold it up and put it back into their pocket. Would you be willing to testify if there should be a hearing? They smile, and there aren't hearings here very often.
Sure.
Great. Now, we understand that it was very late. There were drinks involved. Mr. James has been arrested for the murder of Benjamin Bullock, and the hanging will be tomorrow evening if you're interested in attending. They put their hats back on. And if you wish to say goodbye to the fellow, we're allowing visitors, but only for short periods.
Gentlemen, my apologies. You said he's been arrested for the murder?
Yes, your safety and security in the Heartlands are guaranteed. Please understand that this is the court's ruling, and to speak against it would put you in the same noose. Thank you for your statement, and good day. And they turn and begin walking down the hallway, past Verity, not quite shoulder checking because they're gentlemen, but you do feel their arm just kind of like brush against yours, as if you're in their way.
She stands rooted, completely unfazed by that. She's dealt with plenty of men who think they're better than they are.
Cecil and Faith, you got that same information. Mr. James has been arrested for the murder. You're safe. All is well. Don't worry. Blah, blah, blah. And then they left.
I will give the world's most irritated eye roll, and I will invite Cecil in and go about the process of maybe making us a little continental situation to chat over.
Amazing. While that's happening, after they leave, what do Zedekiah and Verity do?
I guess I'm glad we didn't waste any coffee on them. Come on.
They're going to execute an innocent man.
That is true. Maybe there's something we can do to prevent that from being the case.
I think there is.
Love to hear your thoughts. Probably a bit more cogent than mine.
We go and talk to this man, and then we look into Mr. Bullock. He had a reaction to this story. We dig into it, see if there's any truth to it. We find it and we kill it.
Ever the hunter. All right. You finish making the coffee. I'm gonna go make myself decent.
Yes, ma'am.
Switching back over to Cecil and Faith.
So, Doc, is there anything in the book about ribbons and people's heads falling off?
Yes. Short answer, yes. Long answer, sit down.
Cecil's already like sprawled.
Oh,
just like...
perfect. I think so. Faith will put your book down in front of you. And there's, again, like at the tavern, this upsetting, I'll say we're like in the study, and there's this like upsetting configuration of open and shut books. All of them from like herbs and medicines to like how to decapitate someone. Like it's just very, they're within the range of what we're dealing with, but it's not good. Faith looks a little bit like Charlie Day with the conspiracy board right now. So I went through the book that you loaned me, and then I went through my own texts, and I outsourced a few favors. I'm familiar with Tales of the Headless Horseman. Are you familiar?
I assume he's a horseman who doesn't have a head?
Correct.
Excellent.
That's where it starts. The Headless Horseman, a fellow often seen with or without horse, the head, or lack thereof, being the most distinctive features. But there are more than one. Storybooks like to paint as a sort of vengeful reaper, but there are multiple spirits that fit this description. Often they come in the middle of the night under cloak of shadow and they snatch children. They generate a lot of fear, especially with new families. Um, it rang true with the story that we heard at the tavern, but I have no idea about this. And I'll take out the ribbon and slam it down on the table. Like, this is the straw that breaks faith. I've been looking for any correlation. I don't understand the ribbon.
Yes, that part was disturbing.
Yes. Um, but your tome was very helpful to me, so thank you for that.
Oh, I'm very glad. And he just like takes it and shoves it into his pocket.
Nice. I am, though I am of status and I cannot be seen in doing anything unsavory, I do not like the idea of an innocent man swinging for something he did not do.
No, I agree. Could be our next.
Exactly. I did not like the feel nor appearance of those gentlemen that decided to bother us this morning. And in all truth, the tavern has been a safe place until now. I see no reason why we shouldn't pursue this further if you are interested.
Well, I got no problems against the guy. I wouldn't want Verity's place to have a reputation where people go to get their heads cut off. You know, that's bad
That
for
would be
business.
unfortunate and specific. I think Faith will start like sort of putting on coats and going outside apparatus situations, but also we'll take like a little basket and like any pastries or fruits or anything that aren't eaten, we'll pack them up for Oliver. Is that his name? The little boy? Yeah.
Yeah, the one that you're. Yeah, the one that
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll wrap some little cheeses and fruits and breads up for him. I assume we're gonna maybe mosey.
Cecil is the absolute mosiest.
Nice.
It takes a long time for him to go anywhere, so I assume we might be a little late if we're meeting everybody at the jailhouse because
for sure. This is
a lot of
fashionably late situation. Yeah.
Yes.
So are both groups heading to speak with Mr. James? Okay. So you, starting with Zedekiah and Verity, you arrive at the jail, which is a grand total of 2 cells, just in case. And as you arrive, you see the 2 cells are in like a separate room. The main room sits with one person, kind of sitting at the desk. They see you come in. Can I help you?
We'd like to discuss the man who was recently brought in here. Talk
No.
to him a bit.
Oh yeah. Go ahead. He's the only one in there, so.
Thank you.
Yep, you have. And and he's like thinking for a moment. 15 minutes.
Sure.
When is the execution scheduled again?
Tomorrow evening.
Thank you. Follow Verity.
Yeah, she'll push past, unconcerned about the 15-minute time limit, and go find herself in front of the prison cell of James.
Yeah,
How is he doing?
You see, still in the same clothes he was in last night. He's taken off his kind of suit jacket, and it's hanging as good as it can on, like, there's not even a place to hang it. There's just a little piece of, like, the bar that's kind of bent forward, and he's just hanging it on that to keep it from getting too dirty. And he's sitting on a stool, and he has just, like, his head in his hands. As he hears someone approach, though, he does look up.
She'll kneel, moving very closely to the bars, and I think go ahead and very presumptively reach a hand out towards him.
You see he swallows, almost as if like nervous, kind of glancing behind both of you to look into the next room, but then looks back forward and will take your hand.
She'll nod, rub the back of his hand with her thumb, and look up with him with very kind eyes. James, I think it was. You tell some mighty fine stories. I'm very sorry you are here. Me and my friend, we've got maybe some questions for you. Be real nice if you can answer them.
Well, and he smiles, and you can call me Elijah.
Elijah.
I'll answer what I can. I'm afraid I won't really have the answers you're looking for.
What was the story you were going to tell?
Which one? The headless one, right?
Right. The one that got Mr. Bullock in such a state.
I think at this point, Cecil and Faith are arriving as well. You walk in, the guard kind of looks up. Well, this is a popular place this morning. Can I help you?
Yeah, we're here to talk to the guy.
Yes. Good morning.
You're gonna share their 15 minutes.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Carrie. This room, the setup of the jail cell, it's like there's a room with the guard, and then the cells are in the other room.
Yeah, you go through like a swinging door basically to head into the other room.
Great. So I think while Faith goes in to talk to Elijah, Cecil pulls a harmonica out of his pocket and does this like ring. And is like, looking like you have a bad day, buddy. Do you like music? And then
You see he kind of like looks around, straightens up in his chair a little bit. I mean, yeah, who doesn't like music?
Yeah, idiots, right? Everybody likes music. It's what keeps us normal and alive. All right.
This young.
Let me play a little something for you. And he starts playing his harmonica, and he's incredibly skilled at it. And I would like to use my scold power, which is entrancing performer. And so I'm going to spend a resolve point and make a perform check. And if I succeed, he becomes intoxicated. Right?
As you begin to play, Faith has a nice little background track as she is walking into the room. As you just asked Elijah the story. So, Verity, Zedekiah, and Faith, you're seeing Elijah in this jail cell. He kind of looks up and sees you as well. And now has a nice little background track of harmonica as he is beginning to tell this story.
Before he starts, I'll pass him some of the little nibbles that I've taken in my basket, just in case he's hungry.
He grabs it and thanks you very sincerely, but he does not take a bite.
Okay.
He just kind of holds it. I don't even know how to... You know of the Headless Horrors, right? The Headless Spirits, Headless Horsemen. It kind of depends on where you are, where you've heard the stories. Well, stories that I've heard, the Headless Horseman would snatch children, take them deep into the woods. He would perform some sort of ritual to remove their heads, and then he would put them back. He would hold them on. And you see his eyes kind of go blank for a moment. He would hold them on with a cursed ribbon. And if the ribbon were to ever be removed, the person would die.
With what intent?
Well, the cursed ribbon would satiate some sort of hunger, some sort of drive or need from the headless horror, and once the target loses his head, the horseman comes back for another. Some curse, some... If that old man was taken as a child, he's been living with that ribbon for how long, knowing that if it slips, if it comes off, he's just dead?
Ages. Does it have a preference?
All the tales just say kids.
Where do you hear your stories?
I travel many places. I don't really stay in the same place for too long.
I'm a scholar of sorts, and I'm very familiar with many monstrous tales. I've never heard your edition before, and prior to this had no reason to believe it held such truth. But now that we've seen it with our own eyes, I would press you to think about where you might have heard it first.
It might surprise you to know that I don't read many of these stories. Many of them are told. Many of them, I assume, are folktales. Apparently this one wasn't.
You named a town. Was it, or an area, Litchfield? Is that what you said?
Yeah. That was something else, though. That was some deer.
Yeah. If we were to hunt this thing, where would we find it? Where does it hide?
Where do spirits hide? I don't think it'll be hiding if it needs another victim for much longer.
He, Mr. Bullock, was drained of his blood. Did you have anything to do with that?
No.
Telling the truth?
In his confusion, he appears to be telling the truth, yes.
Got it. Okay. Noted.
Now, I know this is all very strange, but I mean, is there any reasonable explanation for this? Something beyond folk tales? Maybe a trick of the light? Maybe our eyes doing funny things to our minds?
No offense, but a trick of the light made us see him pull a ribbon off and lose his head? All of us?
The wound was clean.
I mean, we've all heard stories about what people see in the woods. She looks at Zed in particular.
I've seen things, nothing like this, and that the wound that he sustained, it was clean. It was one cut. Nobody moves that fast. That I wouldn't have seen.
And I, with the pieces that we've received, both with what I know about this legend and now this new version, try to ascertain, I want to put together a beautiful mind style, timeline sort of thing, right? In a normal scenario where the horseman is feeding, it does this, and then it does this. Kid goes missing. This thing is left in its bed. These sort of benchmarks of all the additions that I've read that we might be able to rely on, even if they're not consistent, just little things.
Okay. I think many of the legends that you've heard, it does seem to be a specific victim that the headless spirit is looking for. Almost as if it picks a victim and it won't stop until it gets that victim. It'll kill anyone else in its path, but it needs that victim that it's chosen. According to Elijah's story, that victim, that chosen victim, will be a child and will not be killed, will be taken into the woods for whatever ritual is needed.
Follow-up question. When I take the ribbon, I have the ribbon, and I don't want to traumatize this guy, but I'm gonna just take it out. When I inspect it, does it look like, what does it look like? Does it look worn and shredded, or is it still kind of new?
It looks like brand new silk.
Okay. Like, I'm connecting the dots, but I'm connecting nothing. Okay. All right, I'll step back.
Okay, while this was happening, Cecil, will you please make your roll?
I would be happy to. All right. So that is a 12 plus 7. So if his intuition score is less than that, he is now intoxicated.
Intoxicated. The character becomes severely disoriented until the condition expires. It has a worst of 2 modifier on attribute rolls during this time. So, this guard is in fact intoxicated and is just listening to this beautiful, beautiful harmonica.
And I think because you can hear it in the other room, you would all know, or you would notice that it starts just like a normal sort of bluesy harmonica, but at some point there's a very distinct change in it. The melody becomes very disjointed and jagged and like harsh on your ears, but to this guard it's like enrapturing. And so he is now intoxicated for 10 rounds, which is 1 minute. So I'm gonna quick grab the keys off of him, and if you want me to make a ledger main roll, I will be happy to do that so he doesn't notice it. But then just like grab the keys, walk in, unlock it, and be like, we need to get out of here right now, but we're free to go, so come on.
What?
You are not going to be in prison anymore because we're leaving. Let's go. And Cecil will put a hand and like start to pull.
Oh, I don't think we're going to do that.
Okay, but what happens to all of you?
I will open my doors for the time being, but we should move.
I agree.
Verity has sustained enough damage to her property within the last few hours. Let's go.
All right, and here's what you guys go. Zed, I want you to punch me as hard as you can in the face.
You're putting Verity at risk with this. They've seen our faces. There's a difference between proving a man innocent and a jailbreak.
I'm not going to let them execute him. And you know they will.
I do. We have until tomorrow night.
That's not enough time. I'm sorry. If he's gone, then they can be looking for him and we have more time. Punch me as hard as you can in the face.
I'm going to reach up and close the cell door.
Oh my.
As Zed reaches for the cell door, he'll feel Verity's kind of hand, like go to grab his. That's all right. And she'll hold it and squeeze it. And she gets kind of close and says very lowly, Zed, I love your noble heart. Now's not the right time for it.
Yes, ma'am. And he'll sucker punch Cecil.
Oh. Like resettles the glasses. All right, now go. Get out of here.
I'm going to... Okay, I'll take off my little coat cloak situation and I will drape it over Elijah. I assume he has his coat as well, but I will put that over him, be hot for a little bit. And I will usher everyone with poise, looking as official as possible, escort everyone to my home.
There is naked delight on Verity's face when she sees the blood run down from Cecil's nose. She's stunned for a moment and then takes a breath, collects herself, looks around, and then will kind of look to the rest of the group. Faith, I do believe I know where your estate is. It's probably best if I go ahead now or come behind a little bit. And she gestures to herself wearing this elegant powder blue dress with a very low, very generous neckline, and kind of nods graciously. I think I might draw a bit too much attention. And wardens around here don't like me so much.
Is there anything I can give her so that if she's like stopped, because I have a modicum of status, like a hall pass kind of like, she's with me, officer. That I don't know if that's a thing.
I think if you would like, you could have some sort of like really old invitation to a house party that like has a date on there that is a long time ago. But if they don't look too closely, this invitation would just look like she was on her way to your estate.
Oh, Carrie, I'm having one of those patentless ideas.
Yeah.
I have a forgery skill.
Oh my god.
I have a composition kit. Can I change the date on it?
Yes.
Make it recent? Nice.
100%.
Awesome. I'll just kind of spruce it up and like maybe like make the ink look a little bit fresher than how faded it was, and then I'll pass it to you.
Incredible. Yeah, Elijah definitely, both coats kind of like pulled up over him, hiding his face completely. Rushes out and follows you to your home. What's the deal with the good old boys?
Oh, listen, Zed's sticking with Verity, so he likes to think of himself as a right-hand man, so kind of just sticking with her.
I think Cecil is lurking around, like sort of he walks out to see the guard still like intoxicated and sort of loopy, and he makes a scan of the room and finds a chair and just like breaks it and then sort of slumps into the wreckage of it. And when he sees the guard sort of coming around, he like adjusts his, like he's just coming to, and he's that guy just broke out. Holy shit, he clocked me.
You see him like stand up so fast the chair slumps over, and he's like running in there trying to figure out what was going on.
And I think Cecil is just trying to get in the way, just to like create as much of an impediment to this guy as possible. So like they go through the door at the same time, and there's a lot of like, listen, I think my friend just got taken or kidnapped or something. What are you doing?
Yeah. And there's like this immediate like, oh man, we're way past hanging now. And they turn over like excitedly to start writing up more crimes.
Okay, yeah, and he assaulted me, so definitely, yeah, put that on there. And I think that he was dressed incorrectly. There's probably some sumptuary laws, right? So like, you know, he wasn't wearing his tie. You got to put that down. And so I'm going to just drag this out as long as I can to make sure that they have as much time to escape as possible. And then at the end, I'm like, and what is your badge number?
What? You asking, what is your badge number? As he's saying, you know, I think this is enough to just walk up and shoot him. What?
What is your badge number? I want to speak to your superior officer.
Good things, right?
He like looks down at the blood that's covering him, like just his broken nose. He's like, listen, son, you let a dangerous criminal escape. I mean, the charges alone.
Well, if you weren't playing your music,
you asked me to.
Distracted. No, I didn't. You asked if you asked if you could.
You're misremembering.
You're misremembering.
I would like to make a deception roll.
Please do.
I propose we forfeit the plot and we just watch Cecil do this for another like 2 hours.
So Carrie.
Yeah.
I rolled an 18 on the dice, which means I got like a 24.
Okay.
Let me see. I was one away from, because I have mastery in deception, so I could have gotten a crit on a 20, but it's plus 22 for my total lying skill.
For my total lying skill. Okay, so I think there's this moment, there's this like back and forth, no you, and then there's this moment of silence. Okay, hear me out. I don't want to get in trouble.
I don't want you to get in trouble either.
So how about you don't take my badge number?
Okay.
Okay.
Is there someone you don't like?
I just didn't even see you here.
Oh, that's a good one.
That is a
yeah.
good.
So you may need to strike kidnapping, because if my friends and I weren't here, then there can't be a kidnapping. But I think that's amenable. I would like to press charges against the man who punched me. The man who punched me.
The guy. Okay.
Pale storyteller man.
Pale man. Yes. Pale man. That sounds scary. Story.
So you can add that in there. The storyteller, please.
Okay.
All right. Well, I need to go see a doctor because this nose is not going to set itself. But and I think he will also reach into his billfold and pull out some cash, like enough to be not insulting, and be like, "Why don't you have a few drinks on me, just as a part of our understanding?"
All right, and you see him kind of move around and plop that into the desk for now, and you can see the paper that he has set down. He has like scribbled out the necessary things to scribble out now. Well, I can't just shoot him, but... And you see him trying to like calculate where we're at on crimes and what the punishment will be.
Fantastic. Then I'm just gonna mosey my way over to the Parker estate.
Amazing.
At some point in the middle of this exchange, Verity had kind of walked outside, turned the corner a little bit, but could still hear Cecil, and she couldn't walk away from that. But as things start to kind of settle down, she'll offer her hand or her arm for Zed.
Yeah, we'll take it.
And they'll start walking towards the Parker estate.
We'll say when we get to the estate, it has like really awful iron, like wrought iron gates. Like this thing looks bad. I think Faith looks freaky to people, and just in terms of her features. And then the house, it's very like Adam's family house. So she like will carefully open the gate and then like close it behind them and go through the whole process of like gently sort of guiding him. And I think I'll set up the study since there's a lot of us. Same I would do, even though no one is going to eat these pastries, I'm going to set up a continental again because I have all of these resources and now I have friends to use them on. So I'm going to set up a little continental situation, and then I'll like get Elijah maybe situated with like the fireplace / a blanket ? If he wants one. Anything I can provide him that he might seem to want. And I'll just kind of lightly engage him about some of the stories and things he heard. And like, as a, oh yeah, no, I love these kinds of things. You should tell me more about them, until everyone starts to show up.
Yeah, I think he doesn't deny anything that you're doing for him, but he thanks you, but also with that you don't have to do that. But is very graciously thanking you with everything that you're doing. And as you sit down, are you asking him to tell another story, or are you just asking him about the stories in general?
I want to know his story as much as he will tell me in sort of bits and pieces. Like, whether I'll kind of aim it with like what's like a favorite story you picked up and stuff like that, but definitely trying to get to know him a little bit about a safe subject. Because I'm not gonna ever ask him to tell a story again. It's like
your stories are cursed, bro. You need to not tell stories.
Like we're not going there. But yeah, I'll just kind of, as long as this seems like a safe topic, engage him in it. And if he wants to go further, then I'm like cool with that. we can talk about personal stuff. If not, then we can stay here. Just whatever. I'm reading his vibe as we speak.
Okay. As polite and as comfortable as he seems, he does not divulge any personal information. It is very much, I travel around a lot. I don't stay in one place very long. I heard this story here. I heard this story here. Wherever the story setting takes place, that's where he heard the story. Is kind of what you're gathering, going from place to place to place. But he doesn't dive any further than that.
Before everyone arrives with an uncanny sense of timing, just kind of with interest, sort of acknowledge what he said, but also just kind of sit up a little bit and like kind of lean so that the fire catches my eyes. Just be like, I just find you interesting. And I know that there's not always, that there's often more to people than what appears on the surface. So, you are a lovely company to share. Just.
I would like for you to make a luck roll.
Okay. Cool. I roll a d20, right?
Yeah.
For
so
luck,
did
and
you
we
pick
compare.
even or odds for your luck?
It's an excellent question. I think I picked even. Okay, I'll do this red one. That is a 3. So
Okay,
no.
so that is a fail. So you see there's a little smile in the sense of one corner of his mouth kind of goes up a little bit. And then he looks away from your eyes and sits back in his chair. And that is when you hear the others arrive.
I'll just kind of make sure the house is accessible and that they know where we are. But I don't want to leave him alone, so I just kind of hover by the door.
So it'll just, of course, follow Veridian, then step inside. Kind of nod. He'll take his Capitaine off and nod to Faith and to Elijah.
Elijah stands as you enter.
You do understand that while, if we can, we will prove your innocence in the matter of the death of Mr. Bullock, there is no debating the fact that you just escaped from jail.
Yes, and I don't want to seem ungrateful, but I am wondering why.
As am I. I can't answer that question.
The people who run this town, they think they are so righteous, but I think they are so far from what is right and what is wrong, they would not know it if it hit them in the face. I, for one, do not think you belong in that prison. I also don't know what we saw, but you do not seem to have been the cause of it.
I also know that they're quite keen to lock up anything they don't understand. And I make a personal effort to understand things. So, as far as I understand, you are not responsible for what occurred in the tavern. And therefore, it's not fair to give your life an hourglass in exchange for their superstition.
Again, I don't want to seem ungrateful. But what is your plan?
My plan up until this point was to find this thing's next target and wait.
I quite like the old man, and I'm rather sad to see him have passed.
As am I.
I think all of us would have preferred it be a more natural state of affairs. So if it makes you uncomfortable to think that you might be the recipient of such grace, then think of it as avenging Old Man Bullock instead. His death was undue.
I thought he was a miserable drunk, so I'm not particularly broken up about it, but she nods kind of respectfully to the other two.
An entertaining miserable drunk.
Fair.
You know how
Last-
this place is, how the law is. Why stick your neck out?
Oh, I know how the law is. They send men with top hats and suits to my place at least once a month. If I'm lucky, once a month. Kind of feels good to be dealing with them for someone else's troubles.
I think Cecil's probably going to stagger in at that point, like kerchief on his nose. Like, all right, we made it all safe. Oh, Zed, you didn't. That was a hell of a right hook.
My apologies for your nose, Cecil.
Oh no, it was great. Sucker believed every word of it.
Excellent.
Zed, I believe you had an idea of finding the next target. That's how the story goes.
Well,
If
we need
we're
to-
playing along with folktales, that might be the right next thing to do.
Well, we narrow it down. We don't know when Mr. Bullock was taken, but I'm sure when he was, a report was made to the authorities that he was missing. That'll help us identify an age. We identify an age. We look for similar children in that age group here in town. And we watch and we wait. It's going to have to expose itself at some point to take the bait. When it does, we kill it.
Because I just had the most upsetting wave of fear. Is there a way for me to send a note to Oliver to meet me at my estate?
Well, Oliver is the one that delivers the notes.
Cool. How do I summon the boy?
Usually he makes his rounds in the morning to deliver and collect.
Okay. Has he made his rounds for today, or is he?
You got started pretty early. I don't think he has gotten here yet.
Okay. Faith will then seem preoccupied with thinking of him as she realizes, oh no, I know a child.
I think Cecil is not the kind to let that kind of look go. He's like, what's going on? You are a little spacey there for a second.
There's a young boy in town I've been giving lessons to. He's a sweet kid. Never fortunate enough to learn how to read and write, and I live in this empty box by myself, so I occupy the time with aiding him, and I've gotten to know him pretty well. In all this talk of snatching children, he wanders mostly alone. I know Verity and the girls keep an eye on him when he makes his way to the edge, but it's concerning.
You're not talking about Oliver, are you?
I am.
I don't like the sound of that. You're right, he's sweet.
Doesn't matter.
I just hope when he comes around we can convince him to stay under our eye for a little while. So that can't be him. It shouldn't be anyone, but it can't be him.
Do any of you have contacts with the record people? If we wanted to look for an old report of some kind?
I know most of their wives.
That's everything you need.
Right? That's the inn, right?
Fucking cold-blooded. I love it. Oh, God. I fucking love it. That was so good.
Well, we can go home tonight, everybody.
Yep.
Bye.
We're done. Cool.
It's over. We're finished.
We win Backwoods.
The
I didn't
Looney
know you
Tunes,
could
that's
win
all,
this game.
folks.
But you can. So
Oh my God,
Damn.
that was fantastic.
I was
But
gonna
the
say
game-
something and it's gone. I just know
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's where we start. We identify the age group. We identify that. That'll tell us where we go next. We do this methodical. It's a hunt. Don't mistake it for anything else.
Before we go, I will like with the tomes that are still just ugly stacked from earlier, we'll just so we're all on the same page, kind of lay out the information that like I know. Because I did read into the story a little bit more, just so that we're all like the ribbon is an outlier now, and like making sure, yeah, and like we have one if that's important, so that everyone knows we're on the same playing field.
Okay. Elijah also looks at you, Faith, and says, "Do you have anything of Oliver's?"
I might. He's a forgetful little lad. Maybe I have like a hat or something that like he keeps. He comes in, he takes off his hat, and he's like a little too short to reach like the coat rack, the hat rack. So he like spends way too long trying to get it up there. He won't let me help him, and then he puts it up there and then forgets to take it. Or when my back is turned, he tries to take it, can't reach it, and just gives up because he knows he's coming back. So there's probably like a really beaten up like flat cap or something.
Perfect. Yeah. Do you mind if I borrow it?
Yeah, of course. Just, it's not mine. Just be careful with it.
Of course. He takes it, and then you see him kind of looking over to his coat that is around the chair. I'm a bit of a hunter myself. I can find him and keep an eye on him, if that would make you more comfortable.
It would.
Is there an insight type role in this game?
I think it's assess,
The ability-
That's so weird. It's like I knew that was coming.
The ability to perhaps discern what lurks in his heart.
Isn't there like an intuition sort of thing in this game?
I think it's assess. Wouldn't it be
Yeah.
assess?
So,
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
assess
yeah.
would be the skill to use. Otherwise, if he were trying to lie, it would be against the the passive intuition score.
Verity gets an 18 to assess Elijah.
Okay. I'll say this is happening as he is grabbing his coat. He has the hat, and he is beginning to walk out of the homestead. I'm going to message Verity.
Can I follow Elijah out and kind of just out of earshot, like stop him in the hallway?
Okay, so Elijah is like at the door, and Faith comes up and stops him as he is kind of putting his coat again like over his head.
Okay. I'll kind of pull him sort of out of the shadow of the door. And again, using that sick lighting positioning to get that like unsettling glint on my eyes. You seem very capable, and you seem very wise by your travels. But I would just like to remind you, we have 2 other hunters among us, and one of them is me. So, if you're going to find the boy and keep him safe. But should anything happen to him while he is under your watch, I will make you regret the day you stepped out of that cell. I have nothing but time, Elijah. Nothing but time. And then I'll just kind of respectfully nod and turn back into the study. Like it just melts away, and I'll just return back into the study with everyone.
As you turn back in, if you allow it, he grabs your forearm
Sure.
to just kind of turn you just back towards him just slightly. I know a lot about having nothing but time. I swear to you, I'm not going to let anything happen to him.
I think Faith actually smiles and almost looks relieved. Will like nod and then fingers or arms. Yeah.
And he turns and you hear the door close.
Okay.
When Faith comes back, I think she'd see Verity is standing kind of watching the space where Elijah was, and she is holding her hand that was holding his. She shivers a little bit, remembering how cold it was to touch him.
Yeah, I think Verity, like, if we make eye contact coming in, Faith doesn't seem phased whatsoever by this interaction. Just cool as a cucumber, like an understanding was reached. But I think would pause and be concerned for, like, visibly concerned when she sees you react the way you do.
Was your interaction good or bad?
It went fine. He's going to find the boy.
Do you have concerns about that?
I do. But I know that there are those among us perfectly capable of settling a score should that concern come onto the table.
How likely do you think it is that
There
there'll
hasn't
be
been a
something to
contract.
settle?
There hasn't been a contract on him yet.
There's that. But also, I think Faith kind of sighs very deeply and pulls like the ribbon out of her hair, and it kind of like falls to her curls, just fall down to her shoulders. And she looks so tired for just a moment. And that white streak kind of covers one of her eyes. I know the look of someone who is trustworthy by the pain that they have endured. And I trust that by what he has experienced, that he is a man of his word.
Then I'll take you at yours.
I think you would know that if anything were to befall the boy, any harm, I would be devastated. So I'll just sit very abruptly.
So we continue with other plans.
Yes. Well, we still have daylight.
Yeah, we gotta go root through those records.
We do.
All right.
Verity, if ma'am, if you wouldn't mind using your connections.
Do not call me ma'am. Do not make me say that again.
Of course.
And she knows it's not the last time.
Set those records up. Let's do
Let's
this.
go talk to some wives.
Let's go break into the library / records keeping office.
That's right. Let's do
Yeah,
it.
book crimes.
Book
Precisely up
crimes.
my
Always
alley.
here for book crimes.
The best
Fuck
crimes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No better crimes.
Okay. I would like some sort of role from each of you for this. It doesn't have to be for the researching aspect specifically. One of you should probably make that sort of role for that, but I want to know if we were montaging this part of the movie, what would each of you be doing, and what would you like to roll for that?
I think we should start with Verity. So her archetype is specifically the speechmaker, and one of her special abilities at level 1 is 6 degrees of separation. So essentially, if she's able to roll on a d20 underneath her credit score, which is a very high number currently, she's able to, or I as a player am able to kind of invent connections between my character and an NPC. So I think the goal is to, with just charisma dripping out of every pore on her body, many of which are visible to the hungry eye. She will approach the record keeper and begin chatting, probably him up, talking about the last ladies' bridge club meeting that happened, where kind of all of the well-to-do ladies about town who aren't scared of the woods come out to Gideon's to play.
Likewise, as a sentinel, my level 1 ability is Monster Hunter, which means I have a best of 2 modifier for any research or assess roles involving the identification of non-human threats.
What was Verity's role?
She crushes it. She rolls a 3 under 17.
Hell yeah. So we have Zedekiah going to roll for some research. I will say if multiple people are doing that, there is a chance you'll get more information. So don't think you can't research just because someone else is. What do we see with Cecil and Faith?
For Zed, are you... I know our general plan was to look at like the records for like kids that were kidnapped and like ascertain like the age range, right?
Yeah, so it was specifically for Old Man Bullock's case, like to see what age he was, and then if we could, where he went missing.
Cool. So I'm going to supplement that if I can. I am a scholar. So I can't really use any of my baked-in abilities right now. One of it's very funny though, and I really hope we get to use it. But my whole archetype is based off of my ability to very quickly process information, make connections, and sort of work through historical facts to affect my present. I would love to... These are very logical, sort of laid out documents, but I would love to use... I have a skill, theory to practice, where I can supplement certain skills for a different one. I'm trying to see what I have. Can I use... Let me see if my history is actually higher than my assess, if that'll help me. It's the same. Cool. Never mind. We'll say I'm using it anyway for the point of showing it off. So I would love to supplement my history rather than my assess to analyze these documents and try to build like a profile of maybe any other missing children that were reported. Like, are there commonalities in appearance, in personality, anything else besides age that might help us understand?
Okay, so I think we see this flash of like Verity getting you access to all of this information. Then we see Zedekiah and Faith cracking open books, and then the camera like swooshes over to Cecil. What is Cecil doing?
So honestly, everyone seems to have this very well sorted. Cecil is not a researcher. He is Gab. That is what he does in addition to playing cards. I do have a really stupid ability that I think could be funny since we're in a library of some sort. I can silence people magically. And so I want to say that at some point Zedekiah and Faith like if they discover something, they both like get a little loud, and Cecil is going to work his magic and just be like literally take their voices from them for a moment so that we do not get in trouble. And when he does this, he bites his tongue and like more blood comes out of his mouth, and you guys can't speak for several rounds. So I think he's just like, yeah, sitting in the corner, smoking his pipe, just taking it all in, and then sees this moment because maybe we had a little bit of guff from the front desk, and if we were to be loud, we get kicked out. So I'm just gonna make sure that doesn't happen.
All right, I would like for Faith and Zedekiah to make those rolls, please.
Oh yeah, that's a 18.
Okay.
Also an 18, 16 on the die.
Oh,
Okay.
that'll do it.
Perfect. So collectively, here's what you discover. Old Man Bullock did not live here his entire life. So there is no like missing persons report for him when he was a child. He, however, used to be a pretty important member of the government in this community. And that grants a little bit more history when it comes to work history. His very first job, he was a door-to-door salesman. So you discover that about Old Man Bullock. You also discover about other victims, I guess would be the best word, other children that have disappeared. None from this town. None from Providence. This is a very safe location. And I will say, as you're researching, you have access to maybe some surrounding towns' history as well. Many, many, many years ago, reports of a bread delivery boy going missing. Reports in another town, a ballot collector missing. Those are the only ones that really stand out at you. Those are the only ones that are missing where they did not, in fact, find a body. And those are spread out, 60 years apart.
Okay. I'll just, whatever scraps of information there are about these people, I just like to sort of collect of like literally whatever I can find sort of provided in these records, so that I know what to look into later, and I'll make sure that I share it with Zed as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
To kind of discuss all of this, are you wanting to discuss it here at this location, or are you wanting to go somewhere else and kind of share? Where are we heading? Back to Fate's house? Are we going to
Headquarters.
Gideon's? Okay.
Yeah,
All
I'd say the big thing I'd wanted is if possible is, now that we know where these two boys went missing, or these two kids went missing, because of his background we can identify where Old Man Bullock lived as a child, and then compare that to the two and see kind of what area we're looking at.
It doesn't seem to be connected to just one area specifically. I will say, you would know the ages of the other children.
Any reports in there about people with ribbons around their necks dying around the same time that
No.
children went missing? Okay,
Nope.
that's good.
That's
Good question. Good question.
Great question.
None of us asked. That
That's a
could
great
have been in
question.
there.
Yeah.
The bread delivery boy was 9 when he went missing, and the ballot collector was 12.
And how old's our boy Oliver?
Oliver is 8 years old.
Fuck. Okay. So.
Yeah, that's why I was worried. He's a wee bab.
Okay, so we'll say we see this little montage of research, and then you arrive back at Fate's house.
As we leave the record-keeping house, Verity just leans very close in to the record keeper, speaking softly, very kindly as usual. Tell Abigail I'm looking forward to our next play date.
You hear a yep. Mm-hmm.
And she leaves, sauntering out with
I love
hips.
her so much. She's everything.
Incredible.
Fantastic. Oh my god.
I will say, by the time you arrive back to Fate's house, we are in late afternoon, early evening.
And I haven't seen Oliver for the day?
Well, you left to go.
Oh, that's right. I entrusted him to a stranger.
I do think Cecil wants to swing by Gideon's because he's got some stuff he will want if we are in fact hunting.
I'm okay with the field trip.
So before heading back to Faith's, are we all kind of swinging by Gideon's first?
Yeah, we
I
could
want
also
to,
see if Oliver's been there, you know?
yeah. I definitely, I think Zed is still like very, he's not at all appeased by what they've found. Like there's still just a lot of unanswered questions etching at the back of his head, and um, he'll probably go off on his own to like a library or something and just start researching headless horrors, like specifically, like just as much as he can. And he'll look to Verity and say, I just need to do one more thing. I'll meet you back at Faith.
Cannot deny a hunter their ability to hunt. Go.
Suppose not.
See you in a bit.
You will.
Heading to Gideon's. As you are approaching, you are noticing the forest seems much closer now. You see that the vines have kind of taken over the fence, almost like they're reaching in towards the building itself. They haven't reached it yet, though. But you swear that's not how close it was yesterday.
Verity, I know this is your establishment and that you're very proud of it and fond of it, but this, for folk like us who are maybe not born hunters, this is a bit concerning to stay here. I would recommend we get our stuff for maybe a longer stay elsewhere.
I can't just shut down Gideon's. There's people staying there from real far away. I've got, a bunch of the girls live there. That's their home.
Hey, Carrie, how big is my house?
How big do you want your house to be?
I would love for it to be like a 3-story situation, but like it's not it's like old fancy. Like if it were a mansion that's fallen into disrepair, so it's safe to occupy, but it's not maybe as great as it probably should be. Functional. Like the first floor, mwah, immaculate because that's all faithful clean, and then above that, it gets more and
Cobwebs.
more depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that.
Well, listen, I've lived alone for a very long time. I wouldn't mind some company, at least until we can sort this out. I don't know how many patrons you're currently housing, but I have some room, some food, at least a roof and a fire. I don't want to make you give up something that's important to you, but I don't believe you should have to risk your life or the lives of anyone for that matter out of a sense of duty.
Gosh, do you and as they're walking, Verity is kind of looking at this huge, beautiful, very well maintained estate. And she kind of counts in her head. She thinks she has about 4 patrons staying. Right now, 3 of her staff are living there. So it's not a small number of people. If do you really think we got to do this?
I I spend all of my time in your establishment listening or reading stories. And some would argue that's clouded my judgment, but I think it's enhanced it because now I know what's worth being afraid of and what's not. And this is right out of the pages of things I've read. And it's generally not good when there's crossover, especially this urgent. It shouldn't be this close.
I was just making a mental note to have Hastings cut back the woods. Never been afraid of them before. I'm still not now. But I can see the wisdom in your caution.
I wish I wasn't as afraid as I am. I see wisdom in your bravery.
Help me go convince the guests to move then.
I would not consider myself very charming, but I certainly will try. I owe you that much.
At least maybe then you can go put out the candles.
That I will do.
And with, not quite begrudgingly, Verity does not like that she is vacating Gideon's. This has been her home and the place where she stood against a lot of adversity over her nearly 20 years running the place. But tonight it does seem wise. And so she'll go about convincing the guests. I think talking to her staff is a lot easier. People pack bags, and I think we start to head back into town. Probably takes an hour, maybe a bit longer.
Yeah, I think the sun is definitely setting by the time you are making your way back into Providence. I would like for each of you to make a luck roll, please. The three of you.
Okay.
My luck is odd, and I rolled a 1.
My luck is even. I got a 6.
Verity's luck is odd, and she got evens.
Okay. So, all of you are walking along. Faith is probably leading the way just because it is your estate that you're heading to. And I'm going to say Verity is kind of dragging behind just a little bit. Probably physically and emotionally, just kind of dragging her feet at having to move everyone out. And there's a moment, you know how far you have to walk down this road before Gideon's isn't visible anymore. And just before you've reached that, you kind of glance back to look one more time, and you see vines growing up over the building itself. You don't see them moving, but there definitely weren't any vines when you left. And then you hear 3 soft sounds of hooves against the street. You swear it's right beside you. Your eyes shoot over, the sound disappears, and there's nobody there.
I think Verity rubs her eyes, blinks a bit, expecting for the vines to go away, and when they don't, she just turns and continues walking towards the group.
Zedekiah, we see the window at the library, the light getting just gradually darker and darker. We see book after book after book after book. Go ahead and make a roll for this.
That's going to be a 15.
Okay. Kind of matching with previous research moments. No specific locations are pinging to you at all with this as you're looking. You can see stories. Either it's not recorded where they originate, or they're originating so far away from each other that it just doesn't make sense.
No pattern.
It almost doesn't make sense in the form of, like, some of these stories were created 60 years after. Some of them, legends were told weeks apart. As stories begin to spread, there's no pattern at all when it comes to the location or even the times that these stories are created, and they change drastically from a headless horseman galloping and slicing off the heads of people in town. You know, victim amount of 3 people 3 people per full moon is really hard to say. A whole bunch of different things like that, just different legends. And the only thing that you can find that relates at all to kind of this specific scenario, the children, taking the children. Any of the stories that you find, they don't report the deaths of the children. It's only the disappearances, but nothing about reappearances. And you know that when you were looking up Old Man Bullock, there was nothing about his disappearance because that didn't happen in this town. You could come to the assumption that wherever they disappear, that might not be where they reappear. And you're not sure how much time passes in between.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
I think by the time you kind of come to this conclusion, you look up and the sun is setting outside.
Kind of just quietly sighing in frustration, he'll close the last book and return it to the stacks and then turn to make his way out, kind of intent on finding, a nice place on the road to wait while, that he'll cross paths with the others as they return to Faith's.
Okay. As you are heading out, the sun is setting, so there's that like orange glow over everything as you're walking. You hear, your shoes against the paved street as you're walking through. And you look up and you can see, I think first you hear the squeaky bike. Just squeaky bike of Oliver riding down the sidewalk. You see one wheel is completely like bent. So that's the bike kind of does one of these numbers where it's just rocking. And as usual, you've probably seen this 100 times. He goes to turn and the bike just doesn't quite turn and just falls over instead. And he lands and he's like, ugh, and stands back up. You can see, especially with your keen eyes, Elijah, not far behind, kind of just arms crossed, just watching, keeping an eye, but will, take note of him, kind of look over, do something else, interact with someone even. And then as Oliver begins to move again, so does Elijah. And as Oliver is crossing the street, I would like for you to make a luck roll.
You got it. I can do that.
My boy. So unbelievably excited to see this child. I love this description so much. His little bike.
That is a 7. Unfortunately, my luck is even. I went for evens.
Okay. So as Oliver is crossing the street on his bike, having picked it back up and pushing forward, the hair stands up on the back of your neck as you hear 3 clops of hooves coming from directly behind you. You turn to look instinctually. There's nobody there. But as you turn back to look in Oliver's direction, you see in front of you a large horse galloping in the direction of Oliver. You can see there is one large scythe kind of up and on his back. Not in his hands, on his back. You see as the rider is moving forward, there's no head. There are, in these 3 gallops, he reaches down to try and scoop Oliver off of the bike. And you see Oliver kind of looks up, and as this one movement is being made, you see Elijah James come out of nowhere, slam into Oliver, and just roll, almost having gone through the front of this horse. As he pushes through this, it's almost like the front of the horse disappears in a little bit of smoke. As Elijah slams into Oliver and goes into a roll, kind of holding on to him. The bike clatters. You can hear the hooves slamming into the bike, stamping it down into the ground as the entire form dissipates into smoke and is gone in a matter of just moments.
Immediately run to Oliver and Elijah, shotgun unslung at this point, and just say, get him to Faith's, get him to the house.
Yeah, standing up, the cloak has kind of fallen off of Elijah at this point, standing up, kind of making sure, looking at the bike that is just stamped down. And then you see a man in a tan suit and a top hat point. He's over there, pointing to Elijah. And Elijah's like, shit. Get him to Faith's. And Elijah takes off in the opposite direction.
Okay. Oliver, Faith sent me. We're taking you to her place.
My bike!
Well, I will get you a new one.
I don't want a new one.
I pick up the bike in the other hand and the other arm. Fucking. And I just kind of start leading him to Faith's.
Amazing. Now I think we kind of hard cut to everyone again arriving at Faith's. Oliver's sitting on the steps.
I'm sorry about your bike.
It's my favorite bike.
I'm sorry. Does this kid have 2 bikes? Cecil says, walking up. Like,
No, I had one bike and now I have no bikes.
all right, but if you got 1 bike and it's your favorite bike, it's also your least favorite bike.
Shut up.
No, you shut up.
I know Cecil's voice. I feel like Cecil is one of those voices you have a spidey sense for.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you could just tell when shenanigans are afoot. Just kind of poke my head out. Take that in. But when I see Oliver, I'm immediately just gonna scoop him into a hug.
We were right. Oh, you were right.
Like fully with no concern for the fabric of my dress, I'll just drop to my knees and hug him so I'm at his level, and I'm look up at Zed and just like nod very gratefully. Where's Elijah?
Oliver's just talking to you, by the way. Like, I almost got hit by a horse today. And just...
Did you, buddy? Like, I'm gonna engage him, not even condescendingly. Like, you tell me all about it in 2 seconds.
And it's just telling you all about how he almost got hit by a horse, and then some stranger tackled him. And then...
This is why
his
you're my
bike was
favorite
crushed.
child, because you're very brave.
He is.
Just like you have your favorite bike.
Oh, this is Oliver.
This
Is Oliver.
Okay. I understand now.
I'm gonna squish his little face. And in that way that I feel like kids when they hit his age hate.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, yeah. Just squish his face. Just go inside. We're going to have, you know how sometimes we have our scary story talks where things get very serious and you need to listen to me more than you have opinions?
Yeah.
We're going to have a scary story talk. So I need you to go inside, maybe talk to a few people, get some snacks, and then sit down somewhere and I will find you.
Okay.
Okay. And then I'm going to pat him on the head and then send him inside. And I'll just hover sort of on the doorstep with Cecil and Zed.
So
Elijah saved his life. He had to run. The men in tan saw him.
That's unfortunate.
Something tells me he could probably outpace them. I think he'll be fine.
He probably will, but I just still hope for his safety. It's a dangerous time to be alone outside.
You're not wrong. And I will say that when we were at Gideon's, Cecil has changed into his dark clothes, which he has in his inventory, but it's just his like the suit that you always see him in, but just like shades of gray. It's just completely the same suit, but differently colored in terms of it.
Fantastic.
He's also got a longbow and a quiver strapped to his back, and it looks like he may also be packing some other weaponry on him. This is not a typical Cecil look, we'll say, but he does seem a little bit more all business now that we are... It's like, all right, so you saw the horseman? Said you saw there was a horse with a man without a head.
Did. Black horse, black rider, scythe, no head. Dissipated into smoke.
Is it a ghost?
Well, it was incorporeal. but I could hear its hooves on the street.
Faith, is there anything special we do about ghosts?
God, is there anything special we do about ghosts?
Are you there, God? It's me, Faith.
Yeah.
God?
I'm about to sin again.
I love you too, that ghost. I feel like
I think you would know, like in researching these, that they're called like the headless horrors, and you know they're referred to more as spirits.
Okay.
From all of the legends of any of these headless horrors, you can get the sense that, I mean, they can interact with things. They can scoop people up. Their weapon can interact with things, but they can take a ghost form or a spirit form when they wish.
Okay. Is there any specific like weaknesses that I would notice seem consistently true? Like salt, iron, anything like that?
Great idea.
I would like for you to make some sort of roll for this.
Oh, for sure. Let me see if I can use a skill I have to help me with this.
Is there like a help mechanic, or do I just make my own roll, or how does that work?
How does help work, Alex?
From what I remember, it's if you are trained in it and succeed on a skill, you can give someone best of 2.
Okay, so I'll say Verity, if you want to help with that, you are welcome to.
So I think once the gaggle of people showed up to Faith's, Verity made some like quick, meaningful eye contact with Faith, allowed them to kind of tend to Oliver, while Verity actually went about setting up the guests within the home, finding them appropriate rooms to stay in. So she's been kind of gone doing that kind of work for a bit, but she shows up to this conversation right as the question about salt and iron is asked. And we hear her voice as she kind of sits herself down on the stoop. She's now wearing a heavy kind of navy blue cloak with white fur around it. You can't see that much of her has changed, but she does look a little bit more ample around the hips. I think Elijah, was it? He would often sing a song about oak and ash and thorn. Could give us a few more options, maybe. And I'll roll for history. And that is a 20 plus 2, so 22. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, so then that would give Faith best of 2, so you could roll again. Faith.
Oh, cool. Okay. I'm gonna pick a d20 that maybe is different from the one I used. Cool. Good move, because that is a 17.
Okay.
You know, it's like knowledge just beams into Faith's head. Um,
Direct from God.
yeah, it's like I actually do this a lot, so it's even funnier. Like when you have an idea, and instead of just having an idea, you have to like scream as it enters your brain. Yeah. Faith has one of those, oh my God. Like she just stops. Okay. So no, you're right. That's a good lane to sort of head down, but no pun intended. But they don't respond very well to mortal influences in terms of specifics like salt or iron that we might have read in books. But some legends say that the horsemen cannot see or hear. I don't know if that seemed true to you in the moment, but from what I recall, through connections to the earth, they can sense movement on the earth through vibrations.
I think in that moment, you automatically just think of how squeaky Oliver's bike was.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that seems to make sense, but
The only thing I have as something to try is there's a rumor through some of the versions of the tales about piercing its heart. But I always took that metaphorically. I'm reading some of the more emotionally involved versions of the tale that it was a lost soul and you could connect to its humanity. This doesn't seem to be that case, but it's worth a try.
Pierce its heart.
I don't know if it seemed to have one, but
Well, I know where to aim, at the least. Good. We're going to keep Oliver in the basement for the evening, and we're going to put as many of us in between it and him as we can.
okay. I will immediately with that. I will go find Oliver, and I'm gonna set him up in, like, if we have a cellar, anywhere there's no windows. That's gonna be
Okay.
the big one.
So as Faith is going inside to do this, who is standing in this entryway? Who is still like out on the front steps?
I'd say, yeah, the
The
rest of us.
the three of you? Okay.
Can I add that Faith would find Goldie left with Oliver? That's usually who Oliver would stay with.
Perfect.
Whenever he was, at Gideon's too late for the adults to let him walk back. And they have a deck of cards.
Oh,
I imagine they're playing Go Fish really badly. Just the word. It's just an awful game of Go Fish. But they're playing like it's poker. Okay, I won't even disturb them. I'll just go about like sort of making sure there's a place for Goldie to sleep in the room with Oliver. And then Oliver has a place to sleep as well, that it's warm, it's comfortable, all of those things, but also kind of clocking the room for anything I should be concerned about safety wise. Because
Okay.
this is the first time this house has had an occupant that cares about safety. So, like, that where safety is a concern for anyone but myself. So I'm just trying to like make sure.
Okay. As all of that is getting set up, we have the other three left out on the steps. The sun has fully set now. The streets are dark. There are the few like lanterns hanging in various places to at least light the streets enough to be making your way home for various people, and a lot of different porches have lanterns lit as well. And I think Verity and Zedekiah, you both hear 3 clops of hooves.
Verity, get behind me.
You weren't expecting guests, were you? But as she quips at him, she'll immediately move behind him.
Cecil, you armed?
Oh yeah, he's got his bow out.
And I unsling.
And is standing like he knows how to use it.
Good. Hell yeah. I unsling Mercy.
Okay. And you're kind of looking out onto the street. You don't see anyone, even though it sounded like it came from the street right in front of you. It's quiet.
Sorry, you heard something?
3 hooves. 3 clops. It's what heralded its arrival last time. It's close.
I look behind us? Into the house?
Look into the house. It's full of people right now.
Okay. This is what we're gonna do. Verity, you have your shotgun?
She pats her hip underneath her cloak. Yes.
Somebody needs to stay with Oliver. Down in the basement. Less windows. If this thing can turn into smoke, I'm worried about it getting through the breaks in the glass. Cover them up if you can. Stay low. Stay downstairs. if it manages to get down there. You wait until you can, and say you see the white of its eyes, but it has none. Just wait until it's close, unload that shotgun, and I guarantee you'll hit its heart. Cecil, I just need you to keep an eye out, and if you can slow this thing down, do it.
I'll do my best, but I ain't seen it. I haven't heard it.
As that comes out of Cecil's mouth, I'll do my best, but I ain't seen it. It's as if it's been sprinting at you the whole time, but it just appears directly in front of you. Cecil, you are slammed into by the front of a horse.
God
Slammed
damn.
into, breath knocked out of you. You kind of do that spin before you slam into the ground. It does slam into Zedekiah as well. You and Verity both kind of like push backwards, but you don't fall over.
Seeing how close this thing is, I'm going to use my shotgun on it.
As you're knocked back, you look up. Cecil, you are almost trampled by the hooves, but somehow they miss you. And Zedekiah, you bring up the gun. There's no rider.
It's just the horse.
Faith!
What do you mean, Faith?
You are looking at this room for signs of things that are not safe.
Uh-huh.
Oliver is all set up with a lantern and with the cards. And I just need you to make a luck roll.
Something tells me something very large will soon make this room unsafe. I got a 4, and my luck is even.
Okay. Looking around, the room seems secure. You're not seeing the windows are very small. You don't think anything would be able to fit through that, and you feel good about this room. I think things are so quiet that you hear just sounds of commotion outside. No guns are fired or anything, but you hear like the sound of just somebody getting hit really hard with a horse.
Okay. Probably some shouting from Cecil.
Considerable amount of shouting and cursing, yes.
Okay. Yeah. I know that place anywhere. Oh, but I don't want to leave.
I mean, someone's in there with him.
So I will kneel over to them where they're still playing cards. So, hi Goldie. Oliver, remember how we said we were going to have a scary story talk? We're going to do that in 3 seconds, and you're going to listen, okay? You were attacked earlier. It's come back. Don't start counting. You're not good enough at it yet. You were attacked. It's come back. All right? I need you to stay down here.
Okay.
Don't go anywhere.
You're being weird.
I know I'm being weird. It's because caring about you is weird. But I care about you. I'm gonna bar the door. Stay here with Goldie. Just keep your eyes open, okay? And just kind of aggressively pat his head because I don't know how to deal with affection.
As you do that, he squishes your face. Okay. And then let's go.
Faith is gonna be so cool and well adjusted about that and stand up like turning away from Oliver like big Ghibli tears. And we'll just come to the door, look back once, and then like slam it, bar it, whatever I can do. And I will grab in the main study. We'll say there's like a wall with like really shitty looking ceremonial weapons, but there's one really nice looking like a combat knife, and then a whip, and then a really nice hat next to the whip. I don't take the hat, I just take the combat knife and the whip. And I will secure them sort of to my person, and then I will proceed outside.
Amazing. I think you, as you're collecting these items, just through walls, muffled, hear there's no rider. And then you hear the sound of loud and heavy horse hooves. The rest of you, you watch as this horse with no rider kind of runs down the street a little bit and then turns around to face you again.
I'm gonna do something reckless.
Yes, please.
I have an ability that I've been waiting to use all game called Pocket Protector, which is one of the main reasons I took Scholar, because I am in love with this ability.
Yeah.
So I'm going to prepare Pocket Protector. I will tell you what it does when it happens. But it is a counter, a special Scholar flavored counter to an attack to protect myself from incoming damage. But I want to, like a matador, I want to like enter the street in front of this horse and take out the ribbon and see if it reacts to it at all.
First, I would like for you to make a resolve roll. Yes. Actually, all of you.
For resolve, you're trying to get lower than the number you have, right? Is that okay? Sick. That's a 2. And I have a 12.
Hell yeah.
I got 8 under 12.
13 out of 14.
4 under 12.
Damn!
Look
Okay.
at us. We're resolute, guys.
So, Alex, let's say that they succeed on their resolve roll to take half of the effect, and I roll a 1 on the effect. Do they take nothing?
Yeah, you round down. So
Sweet. You guys ain't scared.
we
Well,
ain't
we have a
scared of no
boy.
ghost. Horse.
Wow. That's amazing. I am so happy. Okay. So, as it turns, it's just a horse. It's just a horse. It's a big horse, but it's just a horse right now. There's no rider, there's no sight, there's nothing there. And then it starts galloping towards you, Faith. As you step out into the middle of this street, you pull out this ribbon. And as soon as the ribbon's pulled out, you don't know if it's reacting to that or if it's just reacting to you in front of it, but it is just galloping hard toward you. And as it does so, Verity, Zedekiah, and Cecil, you are watching the smoke. With every hit of the hooves on the street, smoke rises up, but it doesn't disappear. The smoke rises up and it forms a boot. The next hit, the smoke forms a leg. The next hit, it has the waist. Every single hit towards it, you're seeing a rider being formed, and as it is getting closer to Faith, you see it brandish the scythe and pull it backwards.
I was hoping he would do that. Can I use my whip, because I'm sexy, and attempt to snag the scythe with the
Please
whip?
do.
Oh my god,
Please
that would be
do.
fucking
I
incredible.
was counting on this. A stunt roll. Okay, I can do that.
Oh damn. Oh no.
It's fine.
Amazing.
I have faith. It's fine.
So, what I thought would add a little bit of fun to this, I do have this scythe, and there are specific attacks that I can use, but I also have this dice.
Oh god.
Uh-huh.
It says right leg, left leg, torso. 2 of these options say head.
Mm-hmm.
So, I quite literally just rolled a 25
Yeah, that
on my
tracks.
attack roll for you. So, I'm going to roll this dice. If it lands on head,
I die, right?
you're decapitated.
Okay. So, cool. I accept that, but counter offer. Can I use Pocket Protector to attempt to lessen any damage I do sustain? If it's a decapitation, I'm done. But any damage I do sustain to other points of me. As a counter, when you are hit by an attack, you can use your books to defend yourself. You may use an individual book or your entire book bag. I would use the whole bag. gaining +1 armor or +1 armor per book in the book bag, respectively. The books are immediately destroyed. This is why I was sitting on it, because I know I'm going to lose all these books, but I will use it
This
if I
is
have to.
incredible. You're holding this ribbon. It is galloping towards you. You see the form come up so quickly as it is sprinting towards you. One hand holding onto the reins, one bringing up this scythe. As it comes towards you, you try with this whip, and it cracks. It's loud, but it doesn't get the scythe. You see it go through it. It turns to smoke for a moment and then reforms. And as it gallops forward, it goes to swing the scythe down, and in a moment of pure panic, you throw your book bag up in front of you. And you hear the connection as the scythe slams into the bag. You hear it slicing through the cloth, through the books themselves, and you see, all of you, this explosion of paper and spines of the books and cloth as they're just almost like shattering out into the street. The galloping goes past you and almost like skids right behind you to stop. The end of the scythe slams down on the street to kind of help the whole horse kind of stop and turn back towards you. Right behind you, you turn around as shreds of paper and books are just like raining down almost in slow motion, in a sense, raining down. And as you look up, the Headless Horseman brings up the scythe again and goes to brandish it at you once again, but as it does so, an arm comes up and you see Elijah standing in front of you holding on to the scythe. Arm kind of like just, it's tough for him to hold on to it, but he pushes it away, and you see the horse kind of back up just slightly, and that is its turn.
100% when the books get destroyed, Faith 100% screams as if the scythe connected with her body, like full on Scarlet Witch grief scream, like
hell yeah.
And then realizes she's okay.
So, that being said, that is the horseman's turn, and I have the best news. Faith, it's your turn.
Oh! Wow, I wish I was better at attacking things.
You could run away.
I could.
You did almost die.
I'm not qualified for this, so I am going to make eye contact with Elijah and just very quietly, like, thank you. I will stand behind all my well-armed friends on the porch, and I will post myself to guard the door.
Okay, that being said, it is Cecil and Zedekiah's turn at the same time next. So I think we see Verity in the middle of them, I think. Maybe behind, but still in the middle. And Faith comes up, and I think Verity kind of like almost like greets Faith into this like circle of protection almost that you have here at this front door. Faith goes
shaking, like, why did I do that? Why did I go out there? Like, my butt.
And then we see Cecil and Zedekiah kind of take one step forward together. What would the two of you like to do?
After you, sir.
Well, I think there is a moment where they both look at each other. And in that moment, Cecil takes off his sunglasses. And you can see his, like, pure golden eyes. A mark of a certain deal he may have made a while ago. And most people find it very disconcerting, which is why he wears the glasses. But he wants to be able to see properly for what he's about to do. Which is to say, aim and shoot at the heart. And hopefully Zedekiah is doing the same thing.
I am indeed, with my scoped rifle named Mercy.
I think
I wish I had a cool name for mine. I don't.
Well, I will add, so one question I have, Gary, is with a called shot, it's worst of two, right?
Yeah.
But I also have this ability called Fueled by Fear. I have a best of two modifier and attack rolls against targets that are overwhelming or terrifying. Is this horseman overwhelming and or terrifying.
I mean, it does have terrifying. So would that just be a straight roll?
It'd just
Yep.
be a straight roll. Yeah.
Just cancel.
Straight roll for you. And I'm going to say Elijah didn't let go of the scythe and is still just holding it, kind of glancing over at the two of you, trying to keep the horseman in one steady position. Mechanically, it's not doing anything, just cinematically.
Okay.
All right.
I will also aim, but yeah,
For
go for it.
for the sake of this, I would love to know what Verity is doing at the same time, or what Verity's move will be.
Verity stumbles backwards a little bit, and her hands are shaking as they open up her cloak, and she goes to pull out the shotgun that she took from underneath the bar. If Zedekiah's is mercy, then hers is named justice. And she is just very, like, summoning everything she can as it gets harder and harder to believe that this thing is not real, and she's leveling it towards the thing.
Is she also wanting to fire, or is she wanting to wait to see the outcome of Cecil and Zedekiah?
She'll shoot. If her finger figures out how to pull the trigger, she shoots.
Great. Okay, in that case, I would like a roll for all three of you.
Got it.
If you are doing a cold shot, it is worst of 2, except for Zedekiah.
I have a -1 on this roll, but still get a 17.
Get him.
Incredible. I rolled an 18 and a 16, so I got a 21.
Fuck yeah, dude. Yes.
Zedekiah, as soon as you pull the trigger, you know your shot is off. You can see your bullet. We follow your bullet for a moment as it pushes through, and it's at the chest, but as it hits, it's just smoke. And it goes through on the other side. We see Verity's shotgun blast scatter through. Some of them piercing, some of them disappearing into smoke on the other side. Some of them also hitting Elijah's arms that are holding up the scythe, but he does not react to this. And then we see Cecil's arrow. As we see all of these bullets, and the camera kind of comes back up just in time to see Cecil's arrow pierce into the chest of the Headless Horseman. We see it go through, and we see right before it pierces into the heart beats 3 times, kind of matching the 3 clops of the hooves. And as the arrow pierces it, there's a moment where everything just kind of freezes. You see Elijah's arms kind of almost relax, as if he's not fighting anymore, and he lets go, still kind of ready to catch the scythe if he needs to, but he's just kind of looking. He looks back at all of you who have just fired off your shots, and there's just silence. And then you hear the softest, faintest little bit of wind whistling. And almost from the arrow out, the horseman begins turning into smoke. But not smoke that is rising up into the air. No, it's turning into ash. Disintegrating and crumbling down into the street. We see the ash. The wind is blowing it. It's mixing with the shreds of the paper and the books and the bag. And then we see the ribbon kind of sticking out of a little bit of that ash.
I'm gonna pick it up.
You come over, you pick it up. Elijah glances to Zedekiah, Verity, and Cecil and says, "Good shot."
Yeah, Zed claps Cecil on the shoulder.
Well, you pick up things as you travel.
You all are. I am not a very faithful person, despite my name, but you all are a blessing.
Those are you.
Hey, I'm sorry about your books.
I feel as though I've lost probably the only important thing I've ever had in my life, but I think I'll get over it. It's like no light behind her eyes. She's like hasn't processed it.
I think in that moment, Cecil reaches into his pocket and pulls out that same book that he had previously produced, and is like, I think you could use it more than I could. I've read it enough times. I know all this stuff by heart. Yeah.
I'll take it, and I'll just kind of like hold it to my chest. I don't have anything to put it in because my bag got turned to confetti, but I'll just kind of hold it right there. Is Elijah still standing here with us?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go over to him, and I want to tie the ribbon around his wrist.
As you're doing so, you're noticing, like, there are many wounds from Verity's shotgun that he is completely ignoring on his arms, and tie the ribbon.
You saved my life. I threatened you and you saved my life.
Yeah. People threaten me all the time.
I wish that were different. Thank you. Would you like me to discreetly check those out for you and gesture to the wounds?
I'll be okay. And he just kind of like puts his hands behind his back.
Yeah, nice. Okay, I'll just kind of sort of squeeze his arm, like, if you ever need a place to lie low, you can find my house. You're invited.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll kind of go back over to the edge of the room.
I think Cecil at this point is giving Zed a little nudge in the ribs, like, "What? Sure is a good thing he wasn't behind bars tonight, huh?"
I'm able to admit when I was wrong. When I was wrong.
I'm sure it's not the first time, and it certainly won't be the last.
Not that you'll let me forget it.
Never. Ever, never. But I'll let you buy me a drink about it sometime.
And I will.
No.
No.
And your tab will be paid for by me.
Much obliged.
Elijah kind of walks up to Verity, holds out a hand to shake.
She reaches out to take his hand. She is shaking, and keeps looking at the wounds on his arm.
Seriously. Good shot.
Thanks. Had some practice.
And he's only looking at Verity when he says this, but he says, "Take care of these people."
I will, but only because they do such a good job taking care of me.
It's only fair. And you see his eyes kind of flick over, and you are hearing from the distance people not approaching yet, not in the line of sight or anything, but you can hear people, yelling, "The gunshots came from over here." It's like, da-da-da. Well, I think that's my cue to leave. I don't say this often, but it was honestly a pleasure to meet you folks.
You too, Mr. James. Safe travels.
Hope we see each other again.
As do I.
And he glances over at Faith, gives a little half salute, and then turns and disappears in the shadows.
Return it, but it's not as cool. He's cooler than me.
You watch Elijah disappear, and only moments later, 6 men are approaching with weapons drawn, looking around. They see Ash and shredded books.
Oh, we were just having a little bit of a party, doing some skeet shooting.
You have to know that destroying city property, and he points to the shreds of books.
City property? You are on my property making assumptions. I want to speak to your superior officer. What is your badge number?
Oh, I know it.
As you are saying,
well,
he's like, well, nobody owns that many. And then he glances back. Nobody owns that many books, right? Nobody can own. No, that's got to be city and he's just looking around. And everybody's just
another assumption. Then good day. And I will very dramatically shut my front gate.
It's just the gate, so like you can still see each other.
Yeah. Faith is not good at this part. She's just very angry. None of this is acted for her.
I love that. I think the gate is shut. We see Cecil and Faith kind of like walking back, and that leaves Zedekiah and Verity here at the gate as the people are disappearing. What's the last we see of Zedekiah and Verity?
She's still trembling. Thoughts of her husband, a man named Gideon, kind of clinging to her. But when it becomes just her and Zed, she takes a breath and will kind of hold out her arm for him to take.
And he does.
I think Peter packed the Wellingtons he was going to serve tonight. I think you've earned yourself a nice meal.
You join me?
Of course.
Thank you.
And the camera stays at the gate as we see Zedekiah and Verity heading back towards the home. The door opens, they disappear inside, and the door closes, but we can still see the life inside of this home now. We can see it's filled with people. All of a sudden, there are oil lanterns lit in rooms Faith didn't even remember that they had.
I think the moment the commotion settles down, like the first thing Faith does in the house is just sigh so deeply at everything that's occurred, and we'll go and release Oliver from containment, because I forgot that I put him in the basement, and I don't want to leave it like that. So I would go get him, and we would have that scary story talk, I promise, or sort of fill in the gaps for him about what that thing was. Some things are real. We talked about this. Everyone, take things with a grain of salt, but some things are real. And I think after that, this is part of Faith's backstory I didn't really know how to bring up, but Faith, when she was very young, the original manor sustained a lot of fire damage. There was a fire. Faith was the only survivor. And that's part of why the house looks so dilapidated, is the repairs just wouldn't stick. Everything new brought onto this land deteriorates. It's just this cursed plot. And so she's just standing in this house lit by firelight where there's people chattering on every floor. The beds have sheets for the first time in years. And I think she's just content. She's just walking through every room, making meaningful eye contact with people, just amazed that a house like this could have so much life. And I think she gets to like the attic eventually. There's like a very small, rickety spiral staircase no one would ever want to go up, but she goes up it. And in the attic, there's a bunch of like covered furniture, and this is where you see a lot of the fire damage. It's like scorched wood from the underside, but she pulls off a very tall looking rectangle, like a sheet, and you see like an oil painting of a very proud, broad-shouldered man with like graying hair at the temples, very, very thick and curly, and then a sort of shorter woman with very mean-looking eyes, and then a little girl. And Faith just stands in front of it for a little bit. And she kind of turns away from it and goes back towards the light in the house. Her purpose here is complete.
And if you'll allow, when Faith comes back to the light, Verity is like leaning up in the doorway, And she just hands her a flask, and we'll put an arm on her shoulder. Kind of walk back with her.
This is an excellent time to mention I don't think Faith has ever gotten drunk, so this is going to be a lot of fun.
Later on in the evening, I think when folks have started retiring for the night, Zed will seek out Cecil in like a study or a library. And he'll say, I noticed their eyes.
I think Cecil is maybe... He's kind of lounging because with the permission of Faith, I like to think that they have just beat him in cards, like, ridiculously. Like, we played some cards and...
I can fucking beat you. I don't care where you got your fucking card skills, but I promise you, I can beat you.
Faith just, like, schooled him in this. So he's got, like... He's in a little bit of a sulk pout mode. And when Zedekiah comes in, it's just like, oh, another thing. Okay, all right. Yeah. What about them? They're not the eyes my parents gave me, but they're the ones I got.
I don't know how to ask this other than just ask it, but have you ever seen anything like this before? And he lifts his hair and shows this sigil that's been branded onto the back of his neck of Absalom, or I'm sorry, of Asmodeus.
Yeah, I played cards with him at one point.
We see this house. We see the light coming through the windows, and like the beginning, the cameras snaking through the streets. We see Gideon's. And we see the vines are dead and withered and no longer growing. And just a little ways off into the distance, we see the silhouette of Elijah James walking into the forest. And that is where our story of the Headless Horrors comes to a close.
Barry's message is just,
Love it.
nothing works. Sorry.
I
Oh, good.
just get a message that's just like, stop asking me questions.
Yeah. Your FUC cape fucked.
What is happening with everyone else? Like, what is the plan here?
I don't fucking know.
What is happening? What a question.
Like, I love it,
Chaos.
but what's going on?
Yeah.
What a cool time, guys.
Oh, so fun.
I love playing make believe with my friends, guys.
That was awesome.
Oh,
That was so
God.
much fun.